Hello and welcome to the Change Gang podcast with me, your host, Laura Ordile. I'm here to help you hold on to your sanity and your soul as you move through big change in your life. I'm here to guide you, inform you, and hopefully help you to triumph over trauma and the long list of symptoms that come along with it. This podcast series is to bring knowledge, share stories, and open up conversation around hope for those of you that suffer with the difficulties that present themselves in your life, from diagnosed or undiagnosed trauma. Labeled or not, I know you need help, and so do those that have graciously taken the time to have these conversations with me. So let's get to it. Welcome to the Week Change Gang. I have Kerry Madgwick back with me, and I'm super happy to chat some more with her. We talked a lot in the last conversation that we had about nutrition and how important that is in healing trauma in your life and just bringing yourself into a good place of being, whether the trauma is there or not, to help you function today in the best possible way. Thanks for coming back and having another conversation with me, Kerry. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me back.
We talked also a little bit about your journey in the last one and what brought you, and it was kind of a long journey. Your journey was like 10 years in the healing process. And I know sometimes we have to go through those periods in our life to not only find our own way, but then to help bring a quicker way for the next person to be able, because you gather all of that information along the way and you bring that into a condensed form of healing for the next person. Do you find that happened with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I know, as we say, everyone's on their own journey. But I mean, my diagnosis took 6 to 7 years to get a diagnosis in the first place, to understand what was going on so that I could do something about it. And then it was the healing journey. So yeah, I mean, definitely. And I've been able to work with clients and get that down to most of my programs are maximum of 3 months, but I can get change for someone in as little as 4 to 6 weeks. And I think, as you say, we learn and we take different things from different people that work for us and find what works for our clients. So yeah, definitely to shorten people's healing time. We all know everyone really wants a quick fix, don't they? And whilst we can't do it overnight, we can certainly shorten the journey from them to what we've been through and being able to share what really does work.
And you said within 4 to 6 weeks, not 46 weeks, right?
Okay. No, 4 to 6.
So
a month to 6 weeks. And there you were thinking, 46 weeks and not a short period of time.
So I want to kind of dive in a little bit we talked a lot about the nutrition side of things last time. I want to dig in a little bit more into the hypnosis, the mind connection part of the healing process and trauma, but also linking it to nutrition anywhere along the way, because as we talked about before, it is all connected. What made you kind of dive into hypnosis, adding that into your work?
My very first experience, I will tell you, I went on a nutrition training day and we had nutrition training in the morning, and in the afternoon, the lecturer started talking about chakras, and I sat there and I went, I did not sign up for this. I don't want to know anything about this. This is completely out of my realm of anything. I want to go home. I don't know what I'm doing here. All of these thoughts going through my head. But I was stuck in a training center in the middle of nowhere, and I was picking my husband up after he finished work on the way home. So I had nowhere to go. So it was kind of like, well, I'll just listen to this twaddle as we go through. Anyway, so I sat there and I learned. I did take some notes, and I guess that's the process of being open to new things. And even if they're things that you don't agree with, there might be something in there. There might be a nugget. Anyway, I went away, and funny enough, as these things happen, it came up a couple of other times in some other conversations and something else I read. And I thought, well, maybe there's something to this. And one of the nutrition mentors who I trained with, he did a course about emotional anatomy, about how our emotions got trapped in our bodies and which organs those emotions got trapped, and how to start healing those emotions. So when it came to colors, essential oils, working on those emotions, releasing the chakras, and there I was down this rabbit hole of going, oh my goodness, this is so interesting. I never really associated. I think we always just think of our ill health as being something something going wrong in the body, we don't necessarily think of it of our emotions, not dealing with our emotions and our emotions being suppressed, or a trauma happens that you don't. So for instance, even if you had a car accident or a really bad fall, and yes, there's a physical part of that component, but there's also an emotional part of that you don't necessarily deal with. And yeah, that took me down kind of that path. And then I went and did some energy healing. And I think at the time, the energy healing, probably because of the clients that I worked with and probably my mindset, the energy healing was kind of like a woo-woo step too far. And I had some clients who came and we had amazing results and it was working really well. And then I don't know, I lost my dad. So he was still in Africa and he had been really ill. It was very short. He was only ill for a week. And I think it was just the family issues of everyone had said, don't come, he's getting better, or let's see how it goes and if he gets any worse. And then all of a sudden they phoned me and said, he's gone, you need to come. So it was kind of like, okay, so now I'm going, I'm not going to see him, but it was going for the funeral. And then I think it was dealing with that in that, so where he was in Africa, it wasn't a normal burial and cremation. The Muslims very kindly in the community get together and they do the Muslim where you burn the body on a pyre, on the fire. So we were very grateful that they would do that because there was no other way. And I guess it was just that. And then it was the tools that I already had, suddenly I found weren't working as well for me as they had been in the past. So it was after that, I was actually on holiday and something came into my email, and I had known that my energy healing teacher who I did my work with, she had done hypnosis and moved into energy healing. So it was something I was aware of, but I guess like most people, it was kind of my experience was stage shows where people are told to bark like dogs and like chickens. And I was like, no, I don't want anything of this. Anyway, I just thought there's got to be something to it. And there's got to be a way for me to kind of deal with the grief. And I know grief doesn't just go away overnight. You know, it's different for everybody. But it was just that feeling of being unsettled of, I didn't feel like meditating. I didn't feel like doing the other tools that I had because of the place that I was in. And that's what then started me to, you know, I started learning hypnosis. And then I started realizing actually, I think from that I had this whole collection of trauma. And one of the instructors was doing a trauma release protocol that he specifically specialized in. And I did that and I just had such amazing results from that, felt so much better. And I thought, oh, I can teach this to other people. So I actually qualified as an instructor for that. But then I actually thought, do you know what? It wasn't that I didn't want to teach people, but I was working with my clients and I was busy doing that. So that's kind of what brought me to that. And then understanding how effective the trauma release was. And once the trauma was released, in being able to move forward and to find that kind of motivation back again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And so once you kind of stepped into working at the hypnotic level with trauma, you obviously continued and found the protocol with Sarah. And what led you to that, to moving into that? Did someone just recommend it to you and you thought, oh yeah, that sounds interesting? Or what was it about?
Yeah, someone had recommended it to me. So through the work I was doing, I mean, I was getting really good results with my clients. It wasn't that I was looking for a different technique or a different protocol, but I was on a mastermind with someone and they just said to me, oh, you know, Sarah's doing this course and she's absolutely amazing and you need to go and do it. And I think it was the same thing. The initial trauma technique that I learned was from someone who, not that it sounds silly, and not that any trauma is less than any other trauma, but I guess it was just what Sarah was talking about. And I thought she's been through this and she's studied it and she's getting these results at probably a much deeper level than the person I originally learned from. In that, yes, he had some trauma and he was working with people with post-traumatic stress and getting good results. But it was just that of, is there a different way I could do this? Are there some other techniques I could bring in that would work really well for my clients? And that is obviously what Sarah did, provided so much knowledge and information and so many other ways that I can help my clients. And I guess we're all in that situation, aren't we? Is that it's not that you have to perpetually be doing another course and another qualification, but it's finding other ways that you can help your clients to heal on a much deeper level. And that's what I found with Sarah, from someone who I think really understands trauma as well.
Yes, that was one of the things that really, with this particular work, it was like a little switch flipped for me with the amount of information that she gives, because she doesn't, this particular thing, it's not just go in and do this. There's all of this information that is put behind that with her own experiences, but also with the work that she's done with some of the most difficult cases that she's had and brought them through the thing. And I think that's sometimes important, because learning hypnosis is great. And I love that I wanted to do that. And I love the work that I do. And I do it in so many different ways. And you do it in different ways as well. But I think sometimes when you're dealing with people who are at the end of their rope, who are in the deep end underwater and really haven't found a way out, it's not a little thing. It's this big thing. You can look and go, I don't know if I can help them. I mean, it's a little scary, you know, to go, oh my goodness, you have all of these issues, and how am I going to manage all of those issues? Because normal hypnosis, not trauma related, does not, it goes in and says, oh, let's address this one thing. But when you come to the trauma level of it and you come into it in this, you are going in and dealing with a boatload of issues. You're not dealing with issue. And I think that that's where some of the work now that we're doing, and maybe you did this before, you can speak to that, of course, but you kind of said that it is a little bit deeper now with what you're doing. It addresses things in such a way that it allows the subconscious to say, and it's like going in and digging out, I've explained it a few times to people, a sliver that's deep inside your hand that's hurting and causing problems, but you can't quite see it. You can't quite do anything with it. You just know it's there and there's something wrong. And maybe you've put something on it, or maybe you've done a little bit of work, but until you go in and dig that deep little tiny piece of something out and then pull that out and then let it go, then the healing takes place. Then there's no more pain. Then there's no more irritation. Then there's no more symptom.
I love that explanation, because I think that is it, exactly as if you have that splinters. You say you can't see it, but every time you use your hand, the pain is there, but you just can't identify it and see it. One of the things early on, and I think it is, shall we say, a challenge in people who teach hypnosis, and that I think they try and teach people not to allow people to go through an emotion. So kind of what they call an ab reaction. And I always thought, well, that's quite weird, because if you're stopping someone in that ab reaction, I always say better out than in. And if you're stopping someone in that process, then are you reintegrating the trauma? Are you stopping something from coming out? So I'd never veered away from it, and I'd always dealt with it. The first time I did, probably like everyone, it was a little bit scary. Like, oh, what do I do now? It was like, just go with the flow. It'll be all right. And it was exactly. And I think it is understanding what that client needs in that moment to allow them to move forward. So whilst it wasn't probably, I think like everything, well, I don't know, I say that I'm one of those people who I take things and I go, oh yes, this will work for me, or I'll try this with my clients. No, that doesn't work so well. Or I'll add this in and I'll take that and I'll, and move forward and do it that way. So I think that's what it was for me, is just having that information, and the support as well makes a big difference. I think whenever you're doing anything that you're helping other people, whilst your clients, we have client confidentiality and you don't want to be talking about people, but sometimes you just need that support in, oh, this happened. What can I do differently? How can I address that? Which is something which Sarah offers, which not everybody who does training offers as well. And I did like that as well, is that if you come to a point with a client where you think, okay, I've done everything that I think I should be doing, is there something else? And from her wealth of experience, she just does generally have something, just that extra little bit of nugget of, okay, do this, and then it works, and then the protocol's kind of complete and everything's done.
Yes. And it is so different for each person. I think that's so key to bring up, because when people come in and you start to do the hypnosis with them at this level, and I have people ask all the time, what's it going to be like? Or what can I expect? What afterwards can I go out and do that? And I have to tell them, I have no idea. I don't know. Even session to session, I don't know what it's going to be like for you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a saying to hang on for the ride, hands and feet in, and just hang on the ride, because when we get to the end, you'll be glad that you did.
Yeah.
It'll be a little interesting and up and down in between, but it's so key that it's not about stopping a difficult situation, a difficult emotion. It's about allowing it to be cleared and processed and communicated about, and no longer hidden deeply in there.
Absolutely. And that's the interesting thing, even is doing the gut healing, is that some people have that emotional experience because things are clearing out, memories and traumas are clearing out even through doing the gut health, which really surprised me when I started the work as well. Some people came back and said, oh, I feel really emotional through this week. And that's one of the reasons why I then incorporated my hypnosis. Then I'm supporting people both ways. So I think that is it, is that, you know, we always say you're not re-experiencing and you're not having to talk about it and go through it. But sometimes there's just stuff that needs to, as you say, the splinter, as it gets to the surface, at some point it's got to push through and come out. And sometimes that can be the period of kind of that emotional reaction just whilst you get it out and get rid of it.
Well, yeah, there might be stuff coming out with it. There might be, you know, ooey stuff. It might not be a pretty situation, but once that out and it's cleaned and done and everything, and it's open now to that, it heals easily and quickly and completely. And I know we're talking about Sarah a lot, but Sarah, you can go to the Beat Retreat is her website, and you can see what we're talking about. She's just so immensely knowledgeable about it, and we went through this program together. But she does actually, you know, you talked about her coming back and giving you information and everything, and oftentimes some of that next step or some of that, hey, have you checked into this or have you done this, will be around nutrition. She's very much about bringing in the nutrition around it as well. She does a course actually on nutrition and talks about it. And I heard her talk to someone one time, and I don't remember if it was in the hypnosis or the nutrition one, but this person's spouse was just diagnosed with MS. And she said, do this on the hypnosis side and do this on, you know, start right now on the nutrition side, because you need to bring in the whole thing in order to help healing. And it can be reversed and it can be taken care of, but you have to do these in combination. And you probably are aware of, I didn't know until a couple months ago, I read books with a friend and we read the book about the three brains, you know, the gut, the heart, the head, and the gut brain.
Yeah.
And it comes into, again, if you're out there looking at the different things, you're going to find connections all the time. But it comes into that loop of connection and feelings and emotions and how it all comes out in our body in some way if we're listening.
And that's the important thing, again, is that we have neurons in our gut, we have neurons in our heart, and we have neurons in our brain. So they've got to be all in this coherence working together. And I think that's the important thing of hypnosis. Helps with that breathing, certain breathing techniques help with that coherence and getting everything working together. I was talking at a hypnosis convention a couple of weeks ago, talking about the importance of gut, brain and hypnotherapy. And actually your gut and your brain are connected. When you're a fetus, those cells split and half of them go to the brain and half of them go to the gut. So that connection is there. It's a lifelong connection. And all of this information goes backwards and forwards. And I think even up until, I would say, probably 10 years ago, which is not so long ago, even with babies, is that they thought their umbilical cord stopped all the toxins going from the mother into the baby. And they've now found that that's not true. So you've got some babies who are born with over 200 toxins already in their tiny little bodies because of the chemicals and preservatives that are coming in from our food, our skincare, the things we spray around our homes and all of those kinds of things. And then when we talk about resilience from childhood and how trauma impacts someone, if that child is not born very resilient and then has add-on kind of knocks in life, they are probably more prone to trauma later in life than they would be had a different set of circumstances when they were born and growing up. So it is also kind of what we call the landscape of making your resilience to trauma as well, is that difference. And that can come from, as we said, from birth. So I think it is an important aspect of nutrition. I always say to people, most of our food is made in a factory. It's not made in a kitchen. It's not made to keep us healthy. Unfortunately, it's made for companies to get as many profits as they can out of the food that they sell. So it is a big thing. And yeah, I think it is so important. And I do the same thing. I train hypnotherapists with a protocol specifically around gut health for that, because I think we are as hypnotherapists in such a unique position to help our clients with that. You're in conversation with them all the time. You're working with them, and it's just finding out a little bit about what they're eating eating? What's their lifestyle? Are they drinking enough water? All of those things can have an impact on their moods and their anxiety and how they feel as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole, like you say. There's just so many different things, and the connections, like you mentioned before, I think in our last conversation, the generational connection, the ancestral connections, the energy of it, the physicality of it. It's all connected in our wonderful, amazing universe. And we can do magic things and wonderful things with the work that is being done right now. And I love that. I love the connection and the wholeness, that you're addressing the wholeness of somebody. And I think that gets skipped a lot of times.
We always say you wouldn't build your house on a shaky foundation. You'd build your house on a strong foundation, because then it's going to stand the test of time and things can chip away at it, but your foundation is strong. And I think with the work that we're doing is, if someone doesn't have a strong foundation, we're able to go back in and repair that foundation so that they've got that foundation and that resilience going forwards, because we all know life happens. It would be lovely to say, oh, you're never going to have stress or trauma has happened in your life. Wouldn't that be nice? And the clients we work with, it is going to happen at some point, but it's just helping them be more resilient, and being in their wholeness, they're able to deal with that easier. I always say to my clients, it's like the Chinese, when the vase broke, they used to repair it with gold, and they used to put the pottery over the gold. So you didn't see the strength beneath from the challenges that the vase had been through. And I always like that analogy that I use with my clients, is like, there's strength in what you've been through, but it's learning to take that strength through and let go of what isn't serving you, but taking that strength through into whatever you're going to do next and where you're moving forward.
Yes, because once you change all of the stuff going on in the mind and the body and all of that, it does change how you react to almost everything going on, changes the way you look at all of the stuff. It's like being this observer all of a sudden, and it doesn't bring the stress. It might for a minute. It might be like, oh, I'm a little stressed about that big bill that I just got, or I'm a little stressed about this situation. We're humans. We're going to have those feelings. There's going to be things that affect us. You might go through a sadness. You might go through something, but it's being in that space and going, yes, that's not a good situation, or that's a difficult situation. And yet I can be okay through this process. Ultimately, I might feel a little upset. I might feel these things, but they don't dwell and live within us and cause the other issues that continuously come up. It's breaking that continual process, or that loop that we tend to get, and saying, oh, okay, this is not good, but I'm okay.
Absolutely. You're right. It is just breaking that cycle. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day, and so one of the guys was saying, oh, I don't listen to the news because I just get worked up about it. And I'm the same. I don't listen to the news. And he was saying, yes, but you should get to a point where you can listen to the news and realize it's just information, that you then decide what to do with that information. And I think what you're saying is right, is that we get to that point where, oh, this thing's come in, oh, it's just information. I can act rather than react to it. So I think that is so important. And I think it's helping people understand that although it doesn't feel like it now, they will get there. I always say to my clients I always encourage them to kind of give up caffeine and alcohol, and they're like, oh no, I can't do it. And I went, I promise you in 3 weeks time, you won't even miss it. And you can see that they don't kind of believe you when they start, but sure enough, 3 weeks down the line, they're like, I mean, I had a client who was, drinking 5 or 6 cups of caffeine a day. And 3 years later, she's never had another cup of coffee. So it is. And I think it's the same with the trauma processes. Like you say to your clients, you say, well, I don't know how you're going to experience this, but I promise you, stick with me and it's going to be so much better by the time you get to the end. And I think working with it and working with the protocol, as you and I both know, and we can guarantee that they will come out the other side. And I think that's the important part of it. You're not just kind of like, oh, let's try this and try that and try the next thing. You know that as you go through, there are going to be ups and downs, but there is going to be that wholeness at the end of it.
I love that part. That's the part that I think hooked me. And then I was a little bit like, it works every time. It works. Mm-hmm. And she said, if they don't quit, it will work. And sometimes that means going through twice. It might be 12 weeks or it might be something that takes a little bit longer. But for the majority of it, it is within that first 6 weeks that happens. And sometimes there's no change until that 6th week at the end. And you're kind of going, oh no, what's going to, but then it happens. And it's like, oh, and she's seen that happen time and time again. And that is such an amazing thing that I think that we get to have as a claim that it will change. doing, it will help. It will make a difference. Our minds, even when you're doing it, seeing it, sometimes it's like, really, it's going to, and it's like, yes, it is. And that's the part that sometimes I feel like, I know you think that I'm snake's charmer or something by trying to say this help, this will make, it's gonna change things, but it's the dang truth. And so it's fun to have that.
And I think it is that knowing those clients that you have helped and the relief that they've had at the other end, and you see that change. I had a client who came in, he'd been bullied at school and a whole lot of things going on. And he came in the first session and he literally, all he did was agreed that he was going to have the hypnosis. He never said another word to me about anything else. By the third session he came, he was like, oh, I'm going to start up my own woodworking workshop and I really want to employ other people. His clothes had changed. So when he first came in, he was wearing just kind of like a really grey, I don't know, tracksuit, running suit. I don't know what you call them in the state. Everyone calls them different things. We call them tracksuits. And then by the third session he came in, he was wearing jeans and a smart ironed shirt and he had really nice shoes on. And I could, even without him saying anything to me, I could just see the change in his demeanor, in his face and everything. And then you're just like, oh my goodness, it's just worth it every time, isn't it? When you see that you're able to make that much, well, I always say we're not making the difference, are we? We're just guiding our clients through that. But it's just amazing to see that massive difference.
I love that. I love that you shared that story. That's great. And that seeing that and having the client come through, and then you have the clients who will come in and say, oh yeah, I had this. And through part of the process, all of a sudden this huge information comes through in conversation. Oh yeah, I had this happen, or I had this dream about this. And by the way, I had this huge trauma that never came out in the conversation that you're talking about to begin with. And it's like, okay. It gives you more information and little ahas of your own. But the fact that they're even recognizing and having that come up at that point is like, because again, it was just a part of their life. Like, oh, I think it might have been related to this. And you're like, oh, yeah, maybe.
I think that is so true. I mean, that's what I found for me actually, is because so we grew up in a war situation, and the first year of my brother's schooling, he had school over the radio. So I did school over the radio with him, although I was too young. And then he actually went off to school and I was left at home. So I begged and begged and begged and begged. And my mum eventually phoned the headmaster and she basically said, I think if you don't take this child, I don't know what I'm going to do to her, because she's just moaning about going to school. But the weird thing is that all this time later, I felt abandoned because okay, take her, she's going to school. But I'm the one who asked for that, and all I was being given was what I'd asked for. So to me, that had always been a good experience of, I went to school, but I went to school a year younger than I should have because of the situation. And it was only, and as you say, it was like working through stuff, and I suddenly went, oh, that's what happened. So that's happened from a really early age that I never associated. So those things do come up. So it's absolutely true what you say. We always say the thing is never about the thing, is it? It's always something else.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I hope that it guides someone, encourages someone, leads someone to what they need to heal. And I know that you agree with that.
Absolutely.
So everything's going to be in the show note, but please tell them where they can find you and follow you and work with you and do all the things.
My best place that I hang out is on Instagram. So that's probably the best place to come and stalk me and find me, but also probably through my website, and all my information is on my website. I always encourage people the first place to go is to get my book. That's a lower investment and some way to start. And a lot of the information, how I work with my clients, is all in there, and you can start following those simple and easy steps.
Yes, the book. If you believe you can heal yourself, you can. And it's on Amazon.
So Kindle and paperback.
Website is your name, right?
Yes. It's too complicated to spell. If you go Kerry Madgwick, most people want to put a G in it somewhere, but it doesn't have a G in it.
So it'll be in the show notes. Don't worry. We'll put that in there, and they can connect with you and go find your book on Amazon, on Kindle, or in paperback. And that's wonderful. And that's all about your story and your healing process and journey. So it might just inspire someone else.
I hope so. That was the idea. Well, I suppose with everything, like you say, is the work we do, is even if it just helps one other person decide that they're going to look for a solution, then I'm happy if that's the case. Thank you so much for having me, Laura. It's been amazing. And like you said, we could have chatted all day. way with everything that we do. I know what you're doing is amazing, and your podcast as well. Getting the information out there and sharing that is amazing as well. I encourage people obviously to listen to it because you have so many amazing guests on with so many different stories. And I think that's it. When we hear how other people heal and the journey that they've been through, sometimes that inspires us to make changes as well. So thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And thank you. Yes, I think I've had some wonderful people chatting, and they're all so different, and they all connect in a different way and at a different level, and sometimes specialize in different things, just like with you. And I don't know what it is for the person out there, but I know that this is going to be the right conversation for someone, and I'm happy for that. Thank you so much. And Change Gang, I hope that you have enjoyed the conversation today. As I said, you'll find all the information in the show notes. And I hope that you go off and have a wonderful week ahead, and that you meet me right here, same time next week. Ciao. I hope today's episode was interesting and helpful to you in some way. If so, find someone to share it with. Maybe it will help them too. If you'd like to know more about anything discussed here today, you can find all the places to connect with me and the guest speakers in the show notes, or go to lauraordile.com, LauraOrdile.com, and you can reach out to me there. Until next time, ask when you need help, be kind to yourself, and have a happy day.